In this day and age, if you don't have any social media, it's a little like having a storefront with your door to the alley with no signage. People will have a hard time finding you. They'll have a harder time trusting you. They will have a harder time understanding who you are and why they should spend time on learning about you. People buy when they trust. People invest where they trust. People do not invest if they do not trust you. I don't care how good your product is. I don't care how rich the returns are on your deal. People will not invest if they don't trust you. I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. I want to talk to you today about social media. Now, I have to confess, I'm just going to let you know from the very, very beginning, I am not a social media expert at all. In any way, shape, or form, I have somebody who helps me with my social media. So I take it with a grain of salt that this is really about me telling you why I even bother with social media as a real estate investor and as a professional in real estate. And really, it is for you guys, the professionals in real estate, whether you're a consultant or somebody who works with somebody in real estate and you establish yourself as an expert in real estate, running a joint venture partnership or looking to run one, or being a syndicator. These tips are more for you. So if you're one of those people on that list, then please listen up. So I would say the 5 best actionable tips on real estate and social media are really against a background of why do it. Here's why do it. It's about establishing yourself as an expert. I have a whole video. I don't know how, I think I've done that. I don't know when I did it. I've done it more than once. I know that it's probably somewhere in the archives that there is a video on me talking about why do you want to establish yourself as an expert in the field. There's so many reasons that I don't even think I can cover that in a succinct amount of time. So literally, you want to establish yourself as an expert in the field so people know who you are. Pretty straightforward. In this day and age, if you don't have any social media, it's a little like having a storefront with your door to the alley with no signage. People will have a hard time finding you. They'll have a harder time trusting you. They will have a harder time understanding who you are and why they should spend time on learning about you. People buy when they trust. People invest where they trust. People do not invest if they do not trust you. I don't care how good your product is. I don't care how rich the returns are on your deal. People will not invest if they don't trust you. I have a really good example of there was this group that would come to my meeting at one point, and it was very good. They had a great deal going. They would offer 15 to 20% return on their investments. And finally, one of the people from the group came up to me and said, "We don't understand. How come nobody's responding to us?" I said, "Because nobody knows you. You're expecting them to respond to the deal, but investors respond to the trust. So if you want to have people invest with you as a joint venture, as a syndicator, have you be an advisor or a consultant on their deal, have them be your contractor. If you want to have somebody choose you to work with you, you need to establish their trust. This is age old. I'm not telling you anything new, but I'm telling you it's true in real estate as well. The product helps to sell, but that's not all, especially not in real estate, especially not if you're talking about using other people's money. Trust is the first item that has to be checked off the list before somebody's going to hand you their money or trust you to advise them on their money. So it's really about establishing yourself as a trustworthy expert. Social media allows you to do that. It used to, when I was in college, which was literally 30 years ago, it took 7 marketing hits to get somebody to potentially convert to a purchase. 7 marketing hits to get somebody to convert to a purchase. I believe the last number I've heard is 21 marketing hits to get somebody to convert to purchasing. Why 21? Because we are so flooded with information these days, so flooded with marketing, with social media, with hits, with contacts, with seeing branding and marketing from people's, whether it's Coca-Cola on the Super Bowl, or whether it's the tweet inside on your phone. We are hit so many times with so much information that it now takes 21 hits for somebody to establish a sense of familiarity to who you are and why you can add value to their life, why they should trust you. So 21 hits. So how do they establish 21 hits? We establish 21 hits by doing a lot of social media, right? You do email newsletters, right? You do Facebook campaigns where you actually pay to expand beyond your existing circle. You do tweets where you hope people will tweet it forward because it's rich in content and exciting or accurate to today's messages. So very important that we're thinking about trying to establish 21 hits with people, 21 communications, social media, doing podcasts, being able to be on other people's podcasts, putting out tweets, putting out highlights from your projects that you're working on, short little snippets of videos, allow people to get 21 hits. So it's a game of numbers. But it is also a game of culture. You want to establish your take, your hit, your way of being. You don't want to just have a media team or a marketing team establish for you your brand without you being deep in that conversation. You can't just, I wanted this, so I'm just letting you know, I've had my own wants of being able to just establish my brand without being involved in it. Like, can't I just hire a marketing company, let them come up with all the social media campaigns and I don't need to worry about the Not really. Today, even branding experts are well aware that what's in your brand is a sense of culture. What's important is that it's your culture. I can't tell you, I've read contracts with PPMs and LLC agreements for people where I know the syndicator and I know them personally and I know them relatively well, but then I read their contracts and I go, who wrote this? It was usually their lawyer who wrote this. I said, this culture is not the culture of who you are. So if people are looking to actually invest with you and you establish your brand with them, and then they read this, this is going to turn them off, maybe even turn them away, because either you're very personable and have promised certain returns, promised certain culture, promised certain behaviors. Your contract negates everything you've just told everybody because it's so restrictive, or the other way around, right? You're so restrictive in your point of view that people who like that have trusted you, and then they read this very permissive contract and they go, no, I don't like this. This doesn't feel like I'm protected. You see, it's a cultural mismatch. And you will actually lose investors because of the cultural mismatch, because it appears as if it's a lie. It appears as if it's a bait and switch, even if you don't mean it to be a bait and switch, right? So you need cultural consistency between who you are, which is the person that they're going to trust is you as a human being, and what your assets are out there, whether it's tweets, whether it's your branding, whether it's your website, whether it's your contracts. You need to understand that there needs to be consistency between those. You don't have to do it yourself. They just people who are preparing it need to have a conversation with you so that you can indoctrinate them, your team, into your culture. So culture is a constant conversation for me. And I'm not a social media expert. By far, I am not a social media expert. I have a social media team. I have a project manager and I have a branding consultant who work with me specifically on my branding and marketing. But our conversations and my conversations start and end with what's the culture we're moving forward so that people can trust me from the beginning of the first thing they see of my brand all the way through their personal experience when they actually purchase a consulting session or a mentorship series, right? Or a workshop or mastermind class, or they actually invest in my investments. That culture needs to be consistent. So that's my suggestion to you as far as really understanding. Here's the background behind 5 tips, because that's the name of the video, 5 tips to be able to get you for social media, for joint ventures and syndicators and social media. Okay, so here are the 5 tips. Now, these tips are really about what people have told me. I'm just letting you know, and I'm not good at all of them. I am sure my project manager is going to be laughing as she looks at this video the whole time because she knows I am so not good at some of these, but I'm regurgitating what I have been taught to understand. All right. First, regular postings gain traction. That means more than 3 a week if you can. It is not hard, at least not hard for me, to generate content. And I suspect if you worked with somebody who was a social media expert or who just was a social media college student, one of the things that they would talk about is creating content. 3 times a week, push something out, creating that content. Now you go, I'm just running around in my day. What is it? How do I create content out of that? Well, you whip out your phone and you take a video. You whip out your phone and you put a quote. I'm supposed to come up with 50 quotes and I haven't even come up with those yet. You put out a quote, something that a conversation you just had with somebody, right? Something that stood out to you, a conversation with your contractor, and a conversation with your electrician. There's some Remax here connected to knob and tube. That doesn't work because it's a liability. Put it out, right? Creating content is just being willing to take what you're already doing and place it into where somebody else can see it. And I don't care if it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, a video, something written. I'm very video heavy because I don't like writing. So just find a way to get 3 pieces of information out a week. Number 2, once you've gotten into the habit of creating some kind of version of content, you want that content to be rich. You want that, and you'll be surprised what's considered rich, like your personal point of view on syndicators, your personal point of view on engineers, your personal point of view on what does it mean to get plans together. Like I pay anywhere from $6,000 to like almost $20,000 for my architectural plans for my projects. Why such a differential between 6 and 20? That's actually going to be interesting to a new investor. What's that differential? That's obvious to you. That's considered rich content. So rich content about your subject area. So make it insightful if you can, but also make it actionable if you can. Okay, that's rich content. Number 3, this is the one that always gets me because I'm not as good at this, personal content. I'm like, why do they care about me personally? I got nothing to do with this. They're trying to be successful real estate investors to gain return on their financial investments or to gain return on their time investments so they can retire and have a sense of freedom and integrity in their world. Why do they care about me as a human being? My brain doesn't wrap around that very well, but it should. It should wrap around it, but it doesn't. They care about you personally because remember the trust factor? They've decided they trust you. That's why they're following you. That's why they want to engage in your social media, is because they like your point of view. They like where you're coming from. The way your brain thinks is appetizing to them. So they actually want personal information like, I'm getting on a flight. I'm excited about this house I'm looking to purchase because it's going to add to my investment portfolio. Or I'm getting on a flight, or one of my favorite examples, I took my daughter, who was 9 years old at the time, to one of my flips, and she walked into the house and she went, and we had pasta with us. And she went, Mommy, this is a stinky house. I don't even want to eat my pasta in this house. And I'm like, well, that's why we bought it. We bought it because it's a stinky house and we need to unstink it. And it helps my daughter make it concrete in her brain what her mom does in this world when it comes to flipping. She could see the beginning product and why it needed help. And she could see the end product as to why it was then valuable later. So personal content that actually had a real estate lesson in it. Who knew personal content could be so important? But it really is about people feeling like they have a personal understanding of you and maybe even a personal relationship. And this is another area where I fall down, but I know I have been working hard to try to find a way to get better at this. Responding to your audience. I'm in my 50s. I don't understand social media culture very well, but there is a distinct culture in social media that is just like somebody texting you personally, and then they expect you to text back. And if you don't text back, they're a little insulted because they thought we were friends. Well, the people who've grown to know you, who have watched you, who like the way you think, who've decided they trust you, who are engaged in your social media community, still feel they're part of a community. And if you don't ping back into that community, it's harder for them to feel a sense of connection. community to you, understanding of you, a relationship with you. So even though they might respond to each other, which is very good to be able to host and encourage people responding to each other, David Tilney does it really well in his email group, right? There are lots of people who email each other, and David will ping in once in a while, right? So, and he almost responds to almost most major questions, but a lot of people respond to those questions. So it's an active and engaged community using the rich brain of multiple investors that are on that community, that email stream, which can count as social media just as much in my mind as a Facebook page or a Facebook community. But they're looking for your word. They're looking for your response to something. And I'm horrible at that, but it is part of what builds a successful community on Facebook, because it's just like going to a real estate meeting and never saying hi to anybody. You gain nothing from it. Okay, and the last one is picture and video rich. You want to be able to make sure in this day and age, both the Google Analytics as well as human beings respond to videos and pictures, and having a lot of density of that in your social media posts, in your Instagram page, Instagram in particular, especially since the older audience is staying closer to Facebook, but the younger audience is moving more forward with Instagram and Twitter. So you want to be able to be content rich with videos or with pictures in Instagram, yes, in Facebook as well. So, and Twitter can point to video content that is rich, and Google Analytics supports having very rich content that is picture and video rich. They give you higher listings if you do that. All right, those are my 5 tips on social media, and my reasons, probably I think it was 3 reasons behind why you even want to bother doing social media as a real estate professional. So it's about establishing yourself as an expert, establishing trust that with other people, taking 21 hits to do that, establishing your culture so people know who you are and they can relate to the consistency of your culture. 5 tips is regular postings so that they gain traction, rich content so that people can understand and gain something from what they're spending the time looking at, personal content so people understand you and have a sense for who you are personally, responding to your audience so that you help develop a sense of community, and make it video and picture rich, because that's what our audience seems to respond to, especially a younger audience, and even Google Analytics supports that. Thank you so much for listening to the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. My name is Christina Suter. Find me on ChristinaSuter.com. Don't forget, lots of free content on YouTube, Christina Suter, and YouTube FIBI Pasadena. Thank you so much.